All right, everyone, let's jump right in. We're going to talk about the one thing that truly separates a good network deployment from a great one, and that's security. We're digging into the absolute core of wireless network defense today. All those security settings, encryption types, and protocols that are, the foundation of everything we build.
Now, before we really get into the nitty-gritty, just a quick heads up. This deep dive is actually part 4 of a 10-part series. We're breaking down a fantastic report from the RFI detectives over at Virtualization Options LLC. Today, we're zoning in on Chapter 4, which is all about security. So yeah, let's do this. Okay, so here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to talk about why this stuff is so incredibly important. Then we'll jump into the encryption protocols, our first line of defense. After that, we'll get into authentication, which is all about controlling who actually gets on the network. And to wrap it all up, we'll give you a super practical checklist of best practices you can start using right away. So let's start with the big picture, right? Why is wireless security the thing we have to get right? Well, it really all comes down to one massive difference between a wireless network and, a good old-fashioned wired one. And honestly, the RFI detectives report just hits the nail on the head with this one. Think about it. This isn't just some part of our job. You can make a strong case that it's the most critical part. This is really where our expertise makes all the difference. And this is the perfect way to understand why. A wired network is kind of like a fortress, right? It's got physical walls. You actually have to plug a cable in to get access. But a wireless network, it's broadcasting its signal out there for anyone and everyone in radio range to hear. That's the fundamental vulnerability we're always working against. And look, the stakes here are incredibly high. This isn't just about stopping someone from hopping on the network to get some free internet. No way. We're talking about preventing unauthorized access to sensitive company files, stopping eavesdroppers from listening in on private conversations, preventing actual data theft, and, of course, protecting the entire network from being taken down. Okay, so that brings us to our main tools for the job, encryption protocols. At the end of the day, these are just the fancy standards that scramble all our data, making it complete gibberish to anyone who doesn't have the secret key. Wi-Fi security has always been this constant cat and mouse game. It feels like we've come a million miles from the old WEP standard, which, let's be honest, was so easy to break. This whole evolution from WEP to WPA, then WPA2, and now to WPA3, it perfectly tracks how the bad guys have gotten smarter and how much more we demand from our networks today. And this really gets to the heart of it. For what felt like forever, WPA2 with AES was our go-to, the gold standard. And it's still pretty strong, but it has a chink in its armor. An attacker can grab that initial connection handshake and then take it offline to just hammer it with password guesses. That's a dictionary attack. WPA3? Well, WPA3 changes the entire game. It uses something called simultaneous authentication of equals, or SAE. And that new handshake method is built specifically to be immune to those offline attacks. It's a huge leap forward, and it's exactly why it's now a requirement for anything that wants to be Wi-Fi 6 certified. So what's the bottom line? WPA3 is the new sheriff in town. It's the modern standard built from the ground up to fight today's threats. It's so advanced, it even has a feature called OWE that gives individual encryption on otherwise open networks. So for us as technicians, rolling out WPA3 isn't just a nice to have, it's absolutely best practice. It's delivering the kind of rock-solid security our clients are paying for. Okay, so encryption is all about scrambling the data so nobody can snoop on it. But how do we stop people from getting on the network in the first place? Well, that's where authentication comes in. Let's talk about that. This is one of the first big decisions you have to make on any deployment. What authentication mode are you going to use? And it's a critical choice because it has a huge impact on two things: how secure the network is, and frankly, how easy or hard it is for legit users to get connected. So we've basically got two main flavors here. First up is personal mode, or PSK, which stands for pre-shared key. Think of it like one password for everyone. It's super simple, it works great, and it's perfect for a whole network or a tiny office. But try that in a big company? Total nightmare. That's when you need enterprise mode. This uses a much more robust system called 802.1x, usually paired with a Radius server, to give every single user their own personal username and password. An employee leaves, you just turn off their account. You don't have to run around changing the Wi-Fi password for the entire company. Okay, Let's bring this all home. I want to pull all these concepts together into a simple, actionable checklist. These are the things you should be thinking about on every single network you touch, whether you're deploying it new or just managing it. All right, let's run through this. First up, prioritize WPA3 every single time. If you absolutely have to support older devices, okay, use a transition mode. But if you're stuck on a WPA2 only network, you have got to make sure it's using AES encryption, not TKIP, never TKIP. Second, use the right tool for the job. Personal for homes and small businesses, enterprise for enterprises. It's that simple. Third, a strong lock is useless with a weak key. Enforce strong, complex passwords. And last but not least, security isn't a set-it-and-forget-it thing. You need to be regularly reviewing and updating these settings. Put it on your calendar. And let's be totally clear here. Getting this stuff right is what makes you a true professional. Look, anyone can unbox a router and plug it in. But an expert understands the why behind all these settings. They can build a network that isn't just fast, but is fundamentally secure. That's what separates you from the crowd. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Just look at the journey from WEP all the way to WPA3. It proves that security is always moving, always evolving. And as we start connecting everything to the network, from life-saving medical gear to our coffee makers, that attack surface just gets bigger and bigger. So the question for us as the people building this future is, what are the next threats going to be? And how are we going to adapt to stop them? Thanks for tuning in.